Sorry for smoking in public, folks, but this is going to take a while. This is take 6 now, and I realized I've got a lot to say this time. And they only give me 15 minutes to talk it in, so this is going to be a two-parter. Uh, what I would like to talk about this evening, or tonight, I guess now, is it's my little spin on the Big Bang Theory. Before I get into that, though, I have to explain a couple others. See, I been a gamer all my life. I mean, I love role-playing games. It started off with first edition Dungeons and Dragons. I'm proud of that. That was invented in the 70s, and I was one of the few children of the 80s and 90s that actually was able to play this. A few friends of mine had some of the books. Anyway, the game I'm referring to was called Mage the Ascension. Apparently, the company that put it out, White Wolf, has changed the name of it. I don't really know what it's called, but if you really want to look it up, just Google the word Mage, White Wolf, or World of Darkness Mage, and you'll get it. Uh, they brought up a couple of things that, when I read them, seemed very, very true. I mean, this is a game, as I said. Never actually got a group together to play it, but uh, had a lot of interesting times reading it and fantasizing about, different stories that I would create based on it. Should probably type some of them out, make a book. But anywho, uh, yeah, one of these things that they mentioned was what they called the Metaphysic Trinity. This is consists of stasis, dynamism, and entropy. Stasis, if you look it up, it's basically force at rest. Basically something that doesn't move, kind of like static electricity. I'm sure a lot of you know what a stasis is at this point if you're even watching my channel. Dynamism, it's being dynamic. Webster defines that as force in motion. So it's kind of the opposite of stasis. It either moves or it doesn't. You'd figure a dualistic concept would pretty much cover this, but the Trinity idea was entropy is the third one. Now Webster defines this as a tendency towards chaos, and I think that's an oversimplification of what entropy really is. In this role-playing game, they define entropy as excuse me, spaghetti barking back. They define it as a blending of opposites so perfect and so complete that you can't tell where one begins and the other ends. Which, of course, would lead to a version of chaos. When you think about it, right? Stasis, left unchecked, will decay. Anything stays still, the universe abhors a stasis. So anything left, the same for too long, it has no choice but to decay. It's just the natural order of things. Same thing with something that moves too much, on the other hand. If it moves too much, it has a tendency to become random and can develop into chaos. So I guess that definition of entropy would, in a sense, be correct. If entropy is the right word to use. I mean, like I said, this is a role-playing game, and this is only a theory that I'm basing on this. Next, they talk about the 9 spheres of magic, which, because of time, I'm going to mention them briefly as I talk about the pattern. Now, it all starts off with prime. This is a sphere they call prime. It's at the bottom of their chart, and the chart moves clockwise, okay, in a cycle. At the bottom there's prime, which is the raw primal energy that everything is composed of, whether you want to talk about subatomic particles, matter, flesh, spirit, um, extra dimensional, vibrational, whatever the fuck you have. Uh, it all comes from the same primal source, the same energy. Uh, and when I was in the Mormon church, as a child, I was raised in this church, and I don't know if this is actually the church's teachings or if it's just my father. Well, actually, this part I know is the church's teachings. That before we were here in this form, we were born to our God, our Heavenly Father, and who, according to that religion, and I also still hold this belief, he has a wife, our Heavenly Mother. A wife. I've seen several things saying that God's a polygamist and whatnot, but that's not what I was taught. I don't know if that's, in the histories of the teachings of that church or whatever. I don't know. Like I said in a previous video, I'm not trying to inspire Mormon hatred here. I'm trying to just explain what I believe. Anyhow, according to my dad, before we were born as spirit children to our heavenly parents, we existed as consciousness, simply pure thought. And this concept always intrigued me. And when I read this chart, or I saw this chart in this role-playing game, it kind of explained a little more on that. See, we start off as this primal energy, and then we condense ourselves into consciousness. Eventually, enough of this energy collects itself. I don't know how. Maybe there's an outside force acting on it. Maybe it's just self-will. I really don't know. But eventually, you evolve a consciousness. This consciousness, this mind, which is the second sphere, you have prime, then you have mind, evolves into spirit, which is the third sphere. You have basically your consciousness resides inside of a spiritual body, which I have seen in many, many, many traditions. Various Wiccan traditions based on, I guess, Druidism. The Druidic teachings teach this as well. I haven't gotten deep enough into the Vedas to know if Hinduism teaches this, and I haven't gotten deep enough into Buddhism to tell whether or not that teaches this. If anybody can help me on this, please do. I don't have that much time to read anymore. Basically, after the spirit is evolved, the spirit is born, it learns what it needs to in that form, then it gets a chance to prove itself, I guess, here in the flesh world. And in this game, there are 3 spheres of magic, which actually are grouped together at the top of the chart. They are forces, matter, and life. So basically, I interpret this as to say, forces is like electricity, fire, wind, that sort of thing. So you combine outside air, basically combine the 4 elements, 5 elements really, into one being. You combine earth, air, fire, and water. Matter obviously corresponds to the elements of earth and water. The sphere of forces corresponds to air, fire, electricity, which the Orientals actually view lightning as another element. You have this bioelectrical, biochemical energy inside of you, combined with your matter and your spirit. That makes your flesh. That makes your life. So afterwards, there's another 2 spheres. They call it correspondence, which basically means space. It's a 3-dimensional space. In the game, it has a lot to do with moving objects from one place to another. You start off just being able to sense where things are, and then you can move little things, and you can move bigger things, and then you can move living things, or what have you. But yeah, that relates. Correspondence corresponds to. Yeah, correspondence relates to space and time. So the way I figure is, after this life is born, it immediately begins to learn such concepts as space and time, where things are, how to move them around, when, the concept of when. These are both man-made concepts. Some will say that God made them. Maybe God gave them to us, but God doesn't use either of those, I don't think. I think we're, you know, it's only this sort of vibrational frequency, this sort of being, our sort of being, that actually uses such crude concepts. After which, you start to get sick of them. You start to learn that they are such man made concepts. You start to evolve beyond them. Then the flesh decays. And I even think that the spirit might decay. And eventually, all of it, the spirit, the mind, the body, it all returns to the same primal energy that it started off as. And it begins the cycle all over again. And this is where my theory on the spiritual Big Bang is going to begin, which I'm going to do in the next video. I'm already after 11 minutes. So I will preview this video, and I will begin the next one presently.